Hello everyone, this is Stepan and welcome to Hanging Pawns. I'll continue the coverage of the second round of the 2018 Chess Candidates tournament we just finished. As opposed to yesterday, this round brought less excitement and unfortunately less decisive results, but the games were still highly instructional and some of them, especially this one, very exciting. It's also great to follow the players from the psychological perspective and to see how they cope with defeat or victory, as well as how they react and which openings and style they adapt for different opponents. This game was played between Ding Liren, who got off easily in yesterday's game against Liren and Caruana, in which Caruana missed a winning variation, and he could have won pretty easily. The game ended with a repetition, and Liren and Caruana is playing against him, who had a great start to the Candidates tournament. He had beaten Wesley so very convincingly in an attacking Catalan game yesterday. In this one, in round 2, Ding Liren was playing with the white pieces, and he opened with one pawn to d4. Caruana responds with knight f6. We have c4, e6, knight f3 and d5. A queen's gambit declined position with knight to f3 interposed, but it will later transpose to a classical line of the open Catalan, so by transposition. g3, not going for e3 or bishop g5 in queen's gambit declined fashion, but entering a Catalan. Bishop to e7 by Caruana, bishop to g2 by Ding Liren, and both sides castle. And here Caruana decides to capitalize on the unconventional move order in the opening and takes the c-pawn with d takes c4, but it's not as recommendable to hold on to it. It's better to let it go because white would get too much initiative in exchange, and here Ding Liren plays queen to c2, and now Caruana could play b5 and defend the pawn. But the variation would result in a favorable position for white, even though black would get to keep his pawn. It would go something like this. So after b5, white could play knight to c3, attacking the b5 pawn, and after c6, a4, breaking up the structure. b4, that would be the only move to save the pawn. And after knight e4, bishop a6, knight takes f6, and bishop takes f6. The line could go something like this, and black would have an equal position, but not more than that, being a pawn up, and it would be much harder to play than for white. That's why Ding Liren decided to let go of the pawn potentially after queen to c2. Caruana decided to let go of the pawn potentially. He just played b6, preparing to develop his bishop. And after b6, players enter a wild variation, which I could never play as black. I couldn't dare. It just seems too dangerous. White in this position plays knight to e5. So Ding Liren plays knight to e5, uncovering an attack on the rook on a8, and Caruana just ignores it. It is a well-known line, but it still seems too scary for black. Ding Liren captures with queen takes d4, and Caruana captures with queen takes d4. We have bishop takes a8, queen takes e5, and the material situation is equal. Black has two pawns for the exchange, but his c-pawns are doubled. So Caruana lost an exchange for two extra pawns, but any further exchanges and simplification would definitely favor Ding Liren because rooks increase in value as the material gets exchanged. We have bishop to f3, a must-play move. Otherwise, Caruana could have trapped the bishop with c6. We have knight to d5, and queen takes c4. Now Ding Liren regains one of his pawns, and now he definitely stands a bit better, both materially and practically speaking. Bishop to a6 by Caruana, targeting the queen. The queen retreats to b3. We have knight to c6, getting the last piece into the game. Queen a4, Ding Liren attacks two pieces, the a6 bishop and the c6 knight, and Caruana simply defends with bishop to b7, getting his bishop back to the long diagonal. We have knight to c3, challenging the d5 knight, and knight d4, centralizing the knight and threatening to capture the bishop on f3, and Ding Liren doesn't allow that. He rather captures the knight on d5 with bishop takes d5. We have e takes d5, of course, capturing with the pawn towards the center, and now Caruana is able to form a strong pawn majority with 4 connected pawns against 2 pawns on the queen side for Ding Liren. And bishop f4, an excellent move by Ding Liren, gaining a tempo on the queen and emerging better out of all the trades that just happened. In this position, white does stand well, even though black has the bishop pair, because the fact that black is an exchange down will soon become more and more significant as the material situation simplifies. Rooks grow in value definitely as the game progresses, and these kinds of sacrifices have to be acted upon fast, since simplification usually means defeat. And now Caruana responds by retreating the queen to f6. We have rook a to d1, getting his last piece into play. c5 by Caruana, a great energetic move, using his pawn majority on the queen side and creating a formidable central structure which is controlling the rooks to some extent, actually. And any opening of the position could benefit both sides, because Caruana is counting on his bishops and Ding Liren on his rooks, but white would profit more since rooks are completely useless behind passed pawns and bishops can at least go to one color complex. So yeah, we have bishop to e3 by Ding Liren, and here Caruana plays a great move. I'd say one of the most beautiful games of the candidate so far. A great idea, and the only move that keeps relative equality in the position, considering the material inequality. He plays knight to f3 check, and his conception is immediately tested by Ding Liren as he accepts the temporary sacrifice. We have e takes f3, and now the idea is revealed, d4. And it isn't only gaining the piece back, but his bishop and queen are looking extremely menacing around white's sliced squares, and especially the weak g2 and f3 squares. Here Ding Liren responds with an immediate f4, not letting his pawn go, because he will lose one piece anyway. D takes c3, Caruana decides to capture the knight. B takes c3 and bishop f3, cementing the bishop in the middle of Ding Liren's position, and it's highly debatable whether any of white's rooks is worth as much as the f3 bishop, because it's keeping white on constant lookout for tactics and mating threats. Rook to d3, and now white is threatening to perhaps take on c5, and then the f3 bishop would be attacked, so it retreats to c6. Queen to b3, the queen was attacked. Queen to f5, attacking the rook on d3. c4, defending indirectly by uncovering the queen to the defense of the rook. Bishop to e4, attacking the rook again, and the rook retreats to d2. Here we have queen to h5, threatening all kinds of attacking ideas around the king, and if Ding Liren isn't careful, he could easily get mated in such a position, because the bishop and the queen are able to coordinate menacingly on g2. And he finds a great conception and the move not many players would even consider, and it shows what a great player he actually is. He plays f3, a remarkable idea, and it sacrifices a pawn to open up his useless, at the moment, f1 rook to the defense of the king, and Caruana accepts the sacrifice. There is nothing much he can do. Retreating the bishop would be absolutely absurd. So bishop takes f3, and now f5, opening up his dark squared bishop. So two energetic pawn moves along the f-file, which from being passive and having his dark squared bishop and the rook on f1 completely passive, now they're alive and open and active pieces. So a great conception by Ding Liren. Caruana responds with bishop to c6, queen to d1, trying to relieve some of the pressure of his king by trading queens. Caruana, of course, declines and places his queen to the most active square. The side attacking should never trade pieces, and besides, Caruana is material down and any trading would benefit Ding Liren. We have rook f to f2, increasing the defense of the sensitive g2 square. h6, making some luft and preventing any tactical possibilities on the bank rank happening. Queen to f1, trying to trade queens again. Caruana declines once again, and we have rook f4, chasing the queen away once again. Queen to g5 and rook to d3, which is now threatening discoveries from the bishop by moving the f4 rook, since the bishop is now defended. So Caruana retreats the queen. He plays queen to f6, and bishop to b2, preparing to transfer the bishop perhaps to c3, which is a more active square from which he could attack the queen on f6 once again. And Caruana responds with bishop a8, which is a great attacking idea by Caruana, who seems to be playing remarkable attacking chess this tournament, which I'm not saying that it's unusual for him, because he is a remarkable player, but he just has great attacking ideas which not many players have shown off this tournament yet. And the idea is to create a queen and bishop battery on the long diagonal and target the undefended h1 square, because white put all of his pieces to the defense of g2. We have h4 by Ding Liren and queen c6 now attacking h1, and Ding Liren defends by moving the king and opening up the queen to h1 by playing king to h2. Caruana responds with bishop to d6, using the bishop pair to their full extent, and the exchange sacrifice has definitely proven worth it so far, because Caruana seems to know exactly how this position should be played, and he just keeps on putting relentless pressure on Ding Liren's king side. We have rook to f2, retreating and defending g2 again, bishop to e5, bishop to c3, challenging the bishop and finally getting a step closer to simplification. And we have bishop takes c3 because the trade was now inevitable. I'm sorry. Rook takes c3 and rook to e8. Now the lack of the rook is becoming felt more significantly, and Caruana's initiative seems to be fading slowly. I'm sorry. Yeah, and even though he finally got to bring his last piece into the game, now the loss of the exchange will have much more significance, because the position is getting opened and Ding Liren should be able to consolidate and to prove his material advantage eventually. We have f6 by Ding Liren, and it's his time to strike now, and he does it energetically. Caruana replies with g6, not letting his king position to open up, but it allows a very dangerous pawn to be placed on f6, and a pawn that could often lead to unexpected attacking chances if black isn't careful. Ding Liren plays rook c to c2. We have rook to e4, getting the rook into the attack. Rook f to e2, queen to e6, and now a pair of rooks get exchanged. Rook takes e4, bishop takes e4, and rook to f2, defending the f6 pawn. Bishop f5, queen to c1, and the position is looking more and more drawish, because neither player has decided to take risks in this position. King to h7, bringing the king to some more safety. Queen to c3, h5, and a3. And in this position, players agreed to a draw, unfortunately. The game still had a lot of potential, and it could have gone either way, but perhaps they were short on time or tired from calculation, because the positions were extremely complicated. And it's definitely not a boring maneuver in theoretical draw as in the game between Kramnik and Karyakin played today. And both players have shown great attacking and defending prowess, and the game could have been a win for a white or black or a draw, but I still think they should have played on a bit longer, especially Ding Liren with being an exchange up. He's now at 50%, and he's yet to get his first victory with the draw yesterday against Aronian and the draw against Caruana, and I guess it's fair when you think about it, because against Aronian he should have lost the game, and now today against Caruana he could have won, because he is one point up material wise. And Caruana stands the best of all 8 players so far after 2 rounds, because he has 1.5 points with yesterday's win against Wesley So and today's draw. And tomorrow he's playing with the white pieces, so he has a great chance to get to 2.5 out of 3. And I must say I'm excited to see how he does in the rest of the games. But from what he'd shown so far, he has definitely proved himself a worthy candidate. And perhaps he even stands a chance to win, I think so. Okay everyone, thanks very much for watching, I hope you got something from this game, and see you soon with more videos from the candidates. Cheers, bye!